Edge Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Wayne Brown on the Talkie Show here at Edge Radio Australia. As you can see, there's no guests. This is my fortnightly show where it's just me talking to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments and I'll see them come up on my little screen here and I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll just talk about a subject that I have pre-chosen. And tonight I've decided to go with a very big, intense topic, and that's love. Now, I know I struggled for many years with this because I thought that love was a singular emotion. You know, you love something, I love ice cream, I love whatever. So I didn't quite understand it. And it was only after a lot of thinking about it, because I wanted to get in touch with my own emotions, that I started contemplating what actually love is. And what I've realized is that, I don't know how many of you know what a graphic equalizer is. For those of you that are old enough, you will know, because we used to have them on all the stereos. Nowadays, they don't have them. Basically, though, with your music, you've got your bass, treble, and everything in between. You can adjust to however your ear is suited. So everyone has their own preference. Some like more bass, some like more treble. So love is much the same, but each of those settings, rather than being a, rather than being a sound, it's an attribute. So there's aspects that make up love, and they're the things that we want to have adjusted to what suits us. So some people like a lot of trust and respect and honesty, admiration, support, accountability, encouragement, all of that sort of thing. So depending on what you want to achieve within your relationship, or what you want to have directed towards you, that is what your setting will be. Now, with all of us, we have a particular setting. Hang on. We, like I said, we have a particular setting, but one of the things that I learned early on, I should probably mention this before I forget, there was a book called The 5 Love Languages. Now, I don't know if you've read it. The chap in there that wrote the book, I can't remember his first name, but his last name's Chapman. He had done a lot of counselling of couples, and he noticed that there were 5 main languages that people used when they were demonstrating love. And they are words of affirmation, physical affection, gift giving, quality time, and acts of service. Now, I'll explain each of these because these are a good place to start if you want to think about how you need to be loved, and also how your partner needs to be loved, because we don't always have a partner who receives and gives love the same as we do. So being aware of these can make a big difference to how your relationships develop. And this is all your relationships, not just your intimate ones. So words of affirmation are when you're actually saying to your partner, I love you, I appreciate you, I like having you in my life, life's better with you around, all of these sorts of things. It's the words that we speak that make a difference to our partner and allow them to feel loved. The next one is acts of service. So acts of service are doing things for your partner. So you're making them a coffee, you're cleaning the dishes for them, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can be things like holding a door open for them. They are all acts of service. They are demonstrations of your love for the person so that they receive that love from you. There is physical affection, which is pretty self-explanatory. These are people that like hugs, holding hands, kisses, cuddles, all of that sort of thing. Then you have, brain's gone blank. What did I say? Acts of service, physical affection, quality time. So you're spending time with the partner. So, and it's not about spending hours and hours with the person. The key is quality time. So when you're spending time with your partner, it's quality. You're not just sitting next to the person scrolling on your phone. you're actually making sure that time counts for something. So if you have intense moments of high quality, you don't need a lot of them. Therefore, you can spend 10, 20 minutes, and that's sufficient to demonstrate your love. Then the other one was, oh, my brain's gone completely blank. I'll have to come back to that one. So these were the 5 that I came across that I started with. Now, for myself, I like a mixture, but we do tend to have one that is higher than the others. So think about your own love language, how you need to receive love from a partner or family or whoever it is, and how they would receive love. Because if your love language is, say, acts of service, and your partner is physical affection, and you don't give them a hug, but you bring them a coffee, every morning, that's not really going to show them that you love them. So therefore, you're going to have this conflict where they don't feel that you love them because you're not hugging them, and you're doing everything you can, making coffee, to let them know that you love them. So therefore, you have this, well, I'm showing you that I love you, why can't you see it? And then they're not receiving it the way that they would like to receive it, and then you have this conflict. So that was a really good one for me to start with, learning how to give love effectively and also to receive love. And what I developed was, like I said, the understanding about the graphic equalizer. And so I started looking at the way that I like to be loved, using those 5 love languages as a start, and then being able to fine-tune it. So one of the things that makes a big difference to me to feel loved is appreciation. And it doesn't have to be over the top. It's just every now and then a thank you or a hug, or I'm glad you're doing that for me. So that sort of thing makes me go a little bit gooey, because it shows that I have value to someone. It's nice to be back in the studio. Thank you for the comment. And that, as I worked on this sort of thing, I also started to understand that when I have other people in my life, I have to look for signs. I'll have to look for little indicators that the way that I'm demonstrating my love is the right way for the person that I'm dealing with. So even if it's like one of my kids, or it could be my father or anyone, it doesn't matter who it is, everyone needs to receive love the way that they like to receive it. Now, the problem is if you don't know how to ask about this. And one of the easiest ways is to just ask, what is it that someone does that allows you to feel loved? If you're talking to a partner, a really good one is, what was something that your exes did that allowed you to feel loved? So regardless of how their relationship ended up, at the start it would have been good. There must have been something that they did that allowed your partner to feel loved. So if they use that as a scale to work with, that then gives you a basis to work with so that you can build up to allowing them to feel really loved. Just to remind you, if you've got any questions or comments or anything, feel free to pop them up in the feed and I'll see them pop up in here. If you want me to explain further about anything, hopefully I'll remember the 5th thing. Now, the thing that a lot of people work on when they go to do relationship counselling, a lot of it comes from this differentiation between their love languages and the way that they communicate it and the way that they both give and receive it. Because sometimes we can be given something in a way that it's delivered with love, but we don't see it that way because that's not the way that we're conditioned or what feels natural for us. So because we may not be aware of our own love language, we can't even tell them that that's what we're not getting. So being able to understand these sorts of things goes a long way to creating a high quality relationship. So if you really, actually, I'll tell you a bit of a story. This will help demonstrate it a little bit because it's something that helped me immensely. I was reading a book many years ago with a lady that had written a book on managing anger. And I was reading through this book, and there was a couple of lines that she had, which I thought were brilliant. She said, I feel loved when you, and it said something or other. And basically it was like a love language. It was like, if you do this particular thing, I'll feel the love. So it's something that you tell to your partner. Now I had a challenge. Hang on, got some. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the comments there. Your children, the comment was about children and their love languages. You can never assume that your kids are all the same. I'm just diverting slightly from my story as I do, where you can't just assume that someone has a particular love language. Even if you observe them, it doesn't necessarily show you what their love language is. You really do need to ask people. So it is really important. But going back to this little story, is I had found in the past, whenever someone had someone they knew that had passed, I didn't know how to deal with their grief because I hadn't tapped into that emotion and explored it and learned to understand it. So I didn't know how to respond to other people's grief. So I took these couple of sentences in this book that I'd read, Gail Lindfeld, I think was her name, and I created a whole book, and I came up with every possible scenario I could think of that you would encounter in life. And I put in there, when I'm feeling this, I feel loved when you do this. And I created this little booklet. And when I met my wife, we'd been going out for a little while, and I gave her a copy, and I said, can you fill this out for me? And I'll fill one out for you. And then once we'd completed it, we handed them over. And the really cool thing was I learned not only her love language, but how to deal with different situations so that when they came up, I would know what to do. I'd know what to say. I'd know how to behave. I must say, be honest here, I don't always get it right, but I get it right a hell of a lot more than I get it wrong, especially compared to what I used to do. So things like that can really help explore what your partner requires in your relationship so that they can feel loved. And remember, you're not making your partner feel loved. This is one of the things that really irks me, is when people say, you make me feel loved. No one has that power. It's up to you to allow it in. And if they don't even know how to do it, that's a real problem. So you need to let them know how to do it so that they can create an environment where it's easy to choose love. It's easy to choose feeling loved. It's easy to choose reciprocating that love. So basically that's what you're doing in a relationship, is you're creating an environment where those things are easy, because every relationship takes work. It takes effort, but it should never, ever be hard work. If it's hard work, either you're not suited or you're using some crappy tools. So those sorts of things, it's worth exploring so that you can create a really good environment where your relationship can grow almost organically. So you're just tending to it like a garden. You're going in, you're taking some weeds out now and then, and it just grows because you're giving it sunshine and water and all of those sorts of things. Some of the comments. Actually, I'm going to just had an idea of looking at these comments. Another really important thing with relationships, and this is one that took me a long time to understand, because I always seem to feel that you couldn't restrict a partner. You couldn't admonish them or tell them off or correct them. And this was one of the things I had to learn because I wasn't very good with my boundaries. So I found in my previous relationships, I would have times where I would feel used and underappreciated. And ultimately, it just turned out I wasn't good with my boundaries. So with your relationship, you need to know what your boundaries are. So with love, you don't want boundaries to that one, but to other things, you do. Now, a lot of people have this belief, this attitude that making your boundaries firm and not giving up on them and not you don't stop pushing them and making sure that they are respected, that's not a good thing. However, if you really love someone, you make your boundaries firm because that shows that you love yourself first, because you can't love anyone more than you love yourself. Now, that, of course, doesn't mean you get full of yourself. It just means you need to have for yourself what you want other people to give you, because if you can't receive it from yourself, you can't receive it from someone else. Wow. For once, I'm a bit of a loss. Okay, I'll go through. This is another one that I learned. I feel like talking a lot about love tonight. Don't know why. Could be because my wife's nearby. I like talking about it when she's nearby. When I was first doing my coaching, I was trying to find a path that relationships naturally took. So I did what everyone does. I went and looked on the internet, and there were like the 3 stages and the 4 and the 5 and the 7 and the 9. And I kept looking at all of these paths that these experts had come up with, and none of them resonated or felt right to me. Then I came across one which I really liked, and I've only put a slight tweak on what she came up with. And everyone's heard of the honeymoon period when you first start dating someone. And that honeymoon period can last anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. Now, that's when everything's wonderful and lovey-dovey and fuzzy and wonderful and warm, and you can't get enough of each other and you're spending all your time together. Now, we are programmed to do that for a reason, all right? This is actually part of our programming, because if we saw people with all of their flaws and their faults and their things that'll push our buttons, we wouldn't actually date anyone, because we would see all of their very unpleasant stuff up front and we'd just go, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. So we need to have rose-colored glasses that we put on, or blinkers, so that we don't see those things, so that we've got a chance of getting into that relationship. Now, once you get past the honeymoon period, which happens to every relationship, you can't keep it going indefinitely, you get to the power struggle. Now, the power struggle is when all the crappy stuff comes out. So this is where your blinkers come off, your rose-colored glasses come off, you start to get annoyed at little things, you start having the conflict, you start having the stuff from your past comes out and presents itself, the stuff you haven't dealt with, so that you start arguing. This is where depending on how you want to look at it, a lot of people don't view it as a good thing, the power struggle. I find it a good thing, because it's in those moments where you get a chance to explore each other, you get a chance to ask questions, you get a chance to examine what it brings out in them and what it brings out in you, so that you can find solutions. Now, the problem is, because most people go, oh, we're having arguments, we're obviously not suited, they then give up on the relationship, and then they go and get another one, go through the honeymoon period, get to the power struggle and go, oh, it's all turned to rubbish again, and they give up, and they just get in this cycle of never getting anywhere. Once you realize that power struggle is where the gold is, and you'll either get that a number of ways. You'll either evolve enough and wake up enough that you'll be able to deal with it, or you'll go to a counselor and you'll get some professional help and some tools and things that'll help you understand how to make it work, or you'll push on and just keep fighting. Now, I know I did that with my previous marriage. I certainly did the power struggle for a long time, a lot longer than I should have. However, I did learn some good stuff in it. Now, if you manage to work that out and get some professional help, some sort of coaching, or you evolve enough that you can do it yourself, that's the least likely one. If you manage to get past that, you'll get to the clarity stage. And this is where things start to calm down. You start to realize some things and you start operating as a couple. Now, at this stage, you go, wow, this is pretty cool. I've enjoyed this. This is actually working out really nice. And then you go into the commitment phase, which is where you go, you know what? Let's make a real thing of this. Let's put some real effort in. Let's vow to be with each other. And it could be marriage. It could be whatever you want, but it's just basically a commitment. And then you do that whole whatever it is that you need to do to get the commitment. And then you move into the final stage, which is the co-creation stage. And this is where you operate as a team. You both bring the best of both of you together so that with your combined efforts and attributes, etc., you become this really good team where you can achieve a hell of a lot more together than you can apart. Now, this was the best one that I had come across. And I've only altered it slightly because with the power struggle, this lady, I can't remember her name at the moment, she was basically like, it's the struggle. I added in the fact that that's where all your gold is. That's where you get to learn and become more. So when you go on this journey, a lot of people seem to think that with relationships, it's a linear thing. You have this stage and this one, then this one, then this one. And it's not. You can get all the way to the end of the co-creation and go back to the power struggle and then back up to the commitment stage. And then, so you can go backwards and forwards because we are evolving as people and we're evolving as a couple so that new challenges come up. Other things from our past come up that we have to deal with. New people come into our lives that create different conflict. You could change careers. Lots of things come in to cause a change to the dynamic that you have in the relationship. So being able to cope with those things and having the tools like your love languages and those sorts of things, that helps you smooth that path a little more so that you can create the relationship that's worth having. However, if you don't understand that the power struggle is where you can learn a lot about yourself and your partner so that you can create that relationship using your love languages, etc., unless you understand that basic premise, relationships are generally going to be a struggle. Just about every couple I've spoken to that has a quality relationship will tell you or would reiterate what I've said, where that path is what they went through. They went through the thing was all shiny and nice and fuzzy at the start, and then they went through this period, and that power struggle can last a really long time if you're just going to power on and not try and deal with it. So they will go through that power struggle, and I know I did for over a decade. I went through that power struggle before I finally went, you know what, there's got to be a better way. So I hit the reset button and then I went and started to do it properly. However, I had to understand about me first so that a partner could come in and we could create that relationship where we could both become more than we currently are. Absolutely true. Little comment there. Without open communication with my wife, we would never have made it to 14 years. Yeah. Actually, here's a funny one that sort of illustrates the complete opposite of what I'm talking about. I did some work with a chap years ago. He's actually responsible for some of my biggest epiphanies regarding relationships and myself. So I'm highly indebted to that man. He used to tell us that his parents had been had 50 years of wedded misery. He actively encouraged his mum to leave his dad. It was that bad, but she said, no, we made a vow, I'm sticking it out to the bitter end. So that's one of those couples where I was saying, where if they don't seek the professional help, if they don't get some coaching, if they don't try and evolve themselves as a person, you end up with that 50 years of misery, which is insane. I did it for 11 years and that was insane. I could have got the lessons if I'd been awake and alert to it. I could have got the lessons, I reckon, probably in less than a year and saved myself a decade. So if you're currently in that power struggle in your relationship, or you're in a new one that's just getting to that, know that you don't need fixing. You're not broken. You just have some shitty tools. Okay? It's the fact of, I've got this situation, I don't know how to deal with it. I'll deal with it the way I've always dealt with it, or I'll use the tools that I've got and I'll get the result I've always got. So unless you get better tools, better understanding, better processes, you're not going to get a better result. So if you're currently in that power struggle, I ask you, please go and get some help. Doesn't have to necessarily be a therapist or a counselor, just someone that you can have be a mediator and sit in between and go, okay, I can see where you're going with this one, whichever one is going to help you. Just something to get you started. I'll tell a story about shitty tools. I think I've told this one before and I'll tell it again because it's always a relevant story. Many years ago, I needed to chop down a tree. And it's funny, when I tell this story, some people think I'm making it up. This is legit true. I needed to chop down a tree, and it was only about as big as my forearm, so it wasn't a massive tree. But nonetheless, I needed to chop it down. So I went into my shed, and of all the tools that I could have had, the only tool I had was a hammer. So no saw, no axe, nothing. So I went out with the hammer, and I started hacking away at the trunk of this tree. And I can tell you, it took quite a while. It took a lot of energy and it made a hell of a lot of mess. And at the end of it, I did chop the tree down. It just wasn't the right tool. And that's like a lot of us, we're trying to chop down trees with hammers. So if you're chopping down trees with hammers and getting crappy results, start looking for better tools. I suppose I can probably use that as a segue into what I do. So if you go to my website, the one that's been running across the screen, lifebackontrack.com, I have my podcasts in there where I talk about relationships. I've got books, all sorts of resources that you can use to start improving your relationship. You can check them out. You can apply for one-on-one coaching with myself if you think that might be something you want to try. I have worked with couples. I've worked with singles. Doesn't matter. It's just all comes down to your tools. So we're getting close to the end of the show. I've got just over a minute. All I want to do is end with this. Every relationship that you have, whether it ended badly or ended well, every one of them can teach you something so that you can have a better relationship next time. I know that my most challenging relationship, my second wife, turned out to be one of my best learning opportunities. I just couldn't see it when I had someone, that chap I was talking about earlier, when he gave me the opportunity to see that lesson. Once I saw it, it changed everything 180 degrees. One of the best things to ever happen to me. And I then went from having all of these not very nice emotions regarding my second wife to an appreciation for that gift that she brought. She's still a pain for what she put me through. However, I've got gratitude for where it ended up taking me. So I hope you've enjoyed this show. If you want to watch it again or listen to it again, the replay is on Sunday, 10 until 10:30 with tonight's show. If you've got any questions you ever want me to answer, send them through to the talkieshow@gmail.com and I'll answer them on one of these solo shows. Otherwise, I'll be having a guest on next week, so you can join me for that one. Otherwise, look after yourselves, keep up the good work, and stay awesome. and we'll catch you next week.
Edge Radio.